Hey guys, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here with a special video to go over the Chaldea Boys Collection event. So it's going to be just pretty much a very short event, just a gacha with some new servants, of course, Astolfo, Kogil, and Amakisashiro, but we're also getting 8 new craft essences, and a few of you have asked me which craft essences are good, which ones are bad, and we do get to pick one of the craft essences from the shop. So a lot of you have also asked me which one you should pick. So I'm going to go over each one, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll know which one you want for yourself. So let's get right into it. First up, we have Kiss Your Hand, which increases Arts, Buster, and Quick Card effectiveness by 10%, and if you limit break it, it increases it by 12%. Now this is a great craft essence for all-rounders with balanced decks. It's not really bad on anyone, but it is especially good on servants that are generally good at everything. So think Arturia, Saber Alter, Liz, Drake, Nobu, Santa Alter, Lily, Mordred, Nero, Nero Bride, and Saber Shiki. This is a lot like a better version of Saber Shiki's connection to the root passive, so it makes sense that it goes well with Saber Shiki. But those servants will get the most out of it because they all generally have pretty decent star gen, pretty decent noble phantasm gain, and pretty decent damage, aside from Lily. And this is just going to amplify all those positive traits. So if you have a balanced team, you might want to consider this craft essence. Next up, we have Teacher and I, which increases Noble Phantasm gauge by 50% at the start of the battle and increases Crit Star gather rate by 300%. If you limit break it, it'll increase your Noble Phantasm gauge by 60% and Crit Star gather rate by 400%. Now this is an ideal craft essence for crit servants with strong Noble Phantasms, so Lancelot, Jack, Mysterious Heroine X, Ogita, Skahak, Nobu, Orion, and it is phenomenally good on Karna. I think this was made for Karna. It actually fixes Karna's biggest problem, which is he has no crit star absorption to match his crit damage buff. So this solves that problem, and it also plays into his Noble Phantasm, which is very strong. Overall, if you have Karna, I do recommend picking up this craft essence, although it's good on pretty much anyone who has a good Noble Phantasm and has a little bit of difficulty collecting crit stars. And the final 5-star craft essence we have is Verses, which increases your damage to Divine Servants by 80% for 3 turns and decreases damage from Divine Servants by 40% for 3 turns. If you limit break it, your damage will go up to 100% and damage received will go down by 50%. Now this is a very niche craft essence, mostly only good for story bosses since they're usually divine, think somebody like Gilgamesh, or during challenge events because they also usually use Divine Servants. And it's best to have this craft essence on a unit in the back row, and you want that unit to kind of come out and solo, that way they get to maximize their damage and defense. But strictly speaking, I don't think this craft essence is very good, because if you do use it on a sweeper or berserker like Herc or Gil, they're just better off with something like their Bond craft essence, or Kaleidoscope, or Halloween Princess, because you just want to come out in Noble Phantasm right away. And while there are a lot of divine enemies, this only lasts for 3 turns, after which it's completely useless and you're not really getting any benefit from your craft essence, so it's not really worth the trade-off. Moving on to the 4-star craft essences, the first one is Beast Under the Moon. This will increase your Noble Phantasm gain by 12% and your crit star drop rate by 12%, as well as restore 200 HP per turn. If you limit break it, you'll get 15% Noble Phantasm gain and crit star drop rate and 300 HP per turn. This is great for crit star generators with low HP, aka assassins. It's ideal for Mysterious Heroine X, Jack, and Cursed Arm Hassan, since they're all pretty fragile and this helps them a bit in that area. Plus they have strong Noble Phantasms and great star generating, so this plays to their strengths. It's also kind of good on Ogita and Skahak, but it was definitely made for those crit star generating assassins. The next 4-star craft essence is Glassful Sweet Time, which applies sure hit and applies damage plus 400 while decreasing incoming damage by 200. If you limit break it, your damage will go up by 600 and decrease incoming damage by 300. This is not very strong. There are 3-star craft essences that give you sure hit from previous events, and that's pretty much the best thing that this craft essence gives, because increasing your damage by 400 and reducing damage taken by 200, that's not a lot. You're better off just using a craft essence that boosts card effectiveness like projection, or even with one strike, which also gives sure hit and is drastically better. So you're going to want to avoid this craft essence. It's one of the weaker ones. It's not really good on anyone. The damage buff and damage decrease it gives you isn't anything major. You probably won't even notice it that much. Moving on, we have Noisy Obsession, which increases crit strength and Noble Phantasm strength by 15% and increases your charm rate by 12%. If you limit break it, it'll increase crit strength and Noble Phantasm strength by 20% and charm rate by 15%. Now this is a beastly craft essence. It's pretty strong on crit servants. The increased charm chance is completely irrelevant, but if you want your crit servants to hit hard, this is the craft essence you're going to want. It's meant for crit servants that have really strong Noble Phantasms. So think Okita, Jack, Nobu, Skahak, Karna, Shiki, Orion, Ann and Mary, Ushi, Protoku, and any crit servant who benefits from having a Noble Phantasm buff. This is definitely one of the better craft essences from the event, and it's all about maximizing damage. So if damage is your thing, then definitely go with this. Moving on to the 3-star craft essences. The first one we have is Salon de Marie, which applies Evade for 1 time and increases your HP recovery amount by 5%, as well as increasing your debuff success rate by 3%. If you limit break it, it'll increase HP recovery by 10% and debuff success by 5%. These are very random effects that don't really synergize in any way. I guess it could be helpful if you're using it on a fragile healing servant like Media Lily to make them more beefy, but it seems like this craft essence was made for its namesake, which is Marie. It synergizes well with Marie because it increases her healing, it gives her an evade for 1 time, and it increases her debuff success rate, aka her charm. So if you do have Marie, then this is worth picking up if you really love Marie and you want a 3-star craft essence to use on her, but on anyone else, it's pretty lackluster. Finally, we have Prince of Slayers, which will give you 1 crit star per turn and increase your damage against dragons by 8%, and if you limit break it, it'll go up to 2 crit stars per turn and increase your damage against dragons by 10%. Now, if the last craft essence was specifically for Marie, this one should be obvious that it's for Siegfried. No one else really benefits from the damage against dragons. It's way too niche of a damage buff. But since Siegfried is built around that, he'll definitely benefit from it. The 1 or 2 crit stars you get per turn is absolutely not even worth talking about. It's completely irrelevant. But the buff against dragons is decent for a 3-star craft essence, so it might be worth tacking onto your Siegfried to go with the whole Dragon Slayer theme. And that covers all the craft essences for the event, and I think we're split down the middle. We have 4 good craft essences and 4 bad craft essences. Overall, I would say you should avoid Versus, Glassful Sweet Time, Salon de Marie, and Prince of Slayer. And you should choose either Kiss Your Hand, Teacher and I, Beast Under the Moon, or Noisy Obsession, depending on what servants you have. If you have a lot of quick or crit servants, then you should go with Teacher and I, Beast Under the Moon, or Noisy Obsession, depending on if you want more damage, more star generating, or more reliable crit absorption. For example, in the case of Karna, I would say you should go with Teacher and I for the crit absorption because that is what works best on him, and it's far more important for him. Whereas if you have Mysterious Heroine X or Jack, they're going to value crit generating and Noble Phantasm gain a lot more, so you're better off with Beast Under the Moon. And if you have strong offensive crit servants like Okita or Skahak with good Noble Phantasms and a lot of crit damage, then you're going to want to maximize that damage with Noisy Obsession. And if you don't have any crit servants or you don't like using crit servants, then great news, just pick Kiss Your Hand, because that's going to be your best go-to option. Everything else here is just situational or plain bad. And I hope that makes things a little bit easier for you guys while you're deciding. If it doesn't, feel free to ask me in the comments below. Give me your team comps and ask what kind of craft essence you should pick. I'll try to help you out as much as possible. And if this video did help you out, please give it a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed it. Also, if you aren't already, please join the party over at our Discord and follow us on Twitter. I will also be releasing spotlights for Astolfo and Amakusa tomorrow right before the event launches, so do look forward to those. And I will see you all next time. Soberoni signing out. Later.